You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
We have a truly memorable episode today. In addition to the great content, we are going to leave you with skills that will enhance your memory, and this will help in all kinds of business experiences and at home, all in about a 20-minute segment. That's you, Carolyn.
I thought you were going to do that part.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, no, I should. You're right. I'm sorry. Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name's Jeff Lenard with NACS.
and I'm Carolyn Schnare, also with NACS. So today we're joined by Chester Santos, who is the USA Memory Champion and also goes by the International Man of Memory. Welcome, Chester.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
This is fun. So you came and found us. I'm so excited that you found us because I am not great at memory things or remembering things. And I just wanted to say, how do you make memory fun? Where'd you find us? Just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I found you guys, I'm normally an international speaker. So since winning the United States Memory Championship, I've spent the last 12 plus years giving speeches and presentations around the world for various types of organizations on how anyone can develop powerful memory skills, use those skills to become more successful in your career, personal life. And if you have any kids or grandkids in school, this will help them out there as well. And I was just looking for association podcasts to be on to get my message out there, as I'm not traveling around the world giving presentations at this moment in time. So that's how I found you. And I'm excited that I found you, and really excited to do this because I feel that your audience, with everything changing nowadays, there are so many new processes, procedures that people are going to have to learn. I'm sure you're either going through new trainings or having your employees go through new trainings, and it's always good to be able to remember that stuff. So that's what I'm going to try to help people out with today on your show.
Absolutely. And also when you look at our industry, we often hear we want to be the Cheers mentality, the TV show Cheers, which the tagline was where everybody knows your name. And we get about 165 million transactions a day in U.S. stores, roughly half of the U.S. population, as you heard on the intro. So there's a huge opportunity for convenience store workers to better remember things about their customers, and that makes a difference. It also makes a difference, as you said, with training. And then on the business level, when you go to a networking reception, which is hopefully sometime soon, or various other ways where you want people to learn corporate missions or remember corporate missions and at important times, it's a great skill to have. And I think there's always a tendency to kind of joke a little bit about, what time's our podcast today? And we went back and forth on that. But memory is way underappreciated in terms of a skill. So how would you like to walk us through showing us the power of memory and what we can do to enhance it?
Yeah, I would love to, because it's going to be applicable to everything you just went over there, Jeff, for sure. And also many other areas of business and life. It's just a very valuable skill. There are three main principles I'll go over, and then we'll try to apply those with a fun exercise. I think your listeners will really enjoy attempting to go through it. We're going to memorize a long list of random words. But first, let's go over the main principles. One, visualization. We tend to be really good at remembering things that we see. An example, let's say you go to a party, you meet a bunch of people. 2 weeks after it's over, your friend describes someone to you from that party. Your friend says, "Hey, Jeff, remember that attorney we met a couple of weeks ago? He's a member of the tennis club." As your friend goes through that description, you usually can picture who they're describing, but a lot of times neither one of you can remember the name, right? So one tip for names is to turn the name into a powerful visual. So Mike might become a microphone, for instance. I'll go
What's
into
Carolyn?
names. Carolyn, you might see Christmas carols or people caroling.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
people Christmas caroling. That would help. But I'll go into names in more detail toward the end, probably. For now, I just want to hit on that, introduce the principle of visualization. So that's going to be huge, but there's more to it. From there, you want to involve additional senses as you can, because you are then activating more and more areas of your brain, and you are building more and more connections in your mind to the information. So at one point, I starred in this episode of PBS's Nova Science, and I performed some crazy memory feats on the show. After that, they had some brain scientists come on and explain, all right, how in the world did he do that? And these neuroscientists explain that it's because with these techniques that I've mastered and teach people, you're activating more and more areas of the brain. And part of that is learning to use additional senses. And the third and final principle is, while you are doing this, seeing and experiencing all of this in your mind, make it weird, unusual in some way, because there's a psychological aspect to human memory. If wherever people are listening to this right now, if an elephant suddenly crashed into the room, if that actually happened, you'd probably remember that for the rest of your life and always tell this story. You'll never believe it. I was listening to the NACS podcast, Convenience Matters, and an elephant just crashed into the room, right? That might be stuck there forever without you even trying to commit it to memory. So there's a psychological aspect to memory. Those are the three main principles. And when you put them all together, instantly you notice an amazing ability really to remember just about anything at all. So we'll try to go through a little exercise. Carolyn, hopefully you won't mind giving this a try and people listening can follow along. You're going to quickly memorize this random list of words. It's going to be monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, and dollar, right? That is the random list.
And we're not editing
I'm doing this to audiences. I can see people looking at me as if I'm crazy. But really, you will pull this off, Carolyn, in just about 2 minutes. You'll have it done perfectly. All you'll need to do is listen to what I described to you, just see and experience it happening. That's it. And people can follow along. So the first word was monkey. Okay. Just try and see a monkey. That's it. This monkey's dancing around. It's making monkey noises. Whoop, 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 whoop. Whatever a monkey would sound like, just try to see and hear that. The monkey now picks up a gigantic iron because that was the next word. So just see this monkey dancing around with the gigantic iron. The iron starts to fall, but a rope attaches itself to the iron. The next word was rope. Maybe even feel it. Maybe it feels sort of rough. Really interact with it. Get those other senses involved. You look up, you see the other end of the rope is attached to a kite. That kite's flying around in the air, and it just flies out of your reach, the kite, and now the kite crashes into the side of a house. See it smash into this house. House was the next word. You notice that house is completely covered in paper. See the paper all over it. Out of nowhere, a shoe appears. It starts to walk all over the paper. Maybe it's messing it up. That shoe smells pretty badly, so you decide to investigate and see why. You look inside of the shoe. You find a little worm. Really see that smelly worm crawling inside of the shoe. The worm now jumps out of the shoe and into an envelope. Maybe it's going to mail itself or something. I don't know. Envelope was next. A pencil appears out of thin air. It starts to write on it. Maybe it's addressing it. Really see the pencil. The pencil now jumps into a river, and there's a huge splash. When it hits the river, you notice, is crashing into a giant rock. That rock flies into a tree. This tree, you notice, is growing cheese, and out of each piece of cheese shoots $1. So that was the whole thing. Hopefully it wasn't too hard. I'm going to run through it in about 20 seconds and just replay through it in your mind. Just see the story happening in your mind. So we had the monkey was dancing around with what? It was an iron. What attached? It was a rope. The other end of the rope was attached to what? It was a kite. What did the kite crash into? It was a house. What was the house covered in? It was paper. What walked on the paper? It was a shoe. What was crawling in the shoe? It was a worm. The worm then jumped into what? It was an envelope. What wrote on the envelope? It was a pencil. What did the pencil jump into? It was a river. The river was crashing into what? It was a rock. That rock flew into a tree. What was it growing? Cheese. And what came out? Last word was dollar. So now, Carolyn, if you feel brave, you can give it a try, and people listening can just run through the story in their mind, and they should be able to pretty easily recall each major object, each random word.
Okay. All right. Fingers crossed. All right. Monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper. Oh, I know I'm going to miss one here, but then envelope. Oh, shoe.
Yeah.
Envelope, pencil, tree, cheese.
Worm.
You're very close. So pencil, you're just missing river, right? The river,
And then the rock.
And then the tree, cheese,
And then the tree and
dollar.
cheese. Dollar.
And what was crawling in the shoe?
A worm.
You got it. So great job under pressure. It's hard under pressure.
That was fun and hard.
Show hosts don't necessarily like it when I put them on the spot like that. Thank you for stepping up and being brave there to volunteer. So I'm sure if you went through that story in your head just 2 or 3 more times, and that would take you just a couple of minutes, you would have it down 100%. Now, this doesn't apply to just random words. They had me over at Harvard University to do seminars. This applies to speeches, presentations, complex material. Those images could represent steps of a procedure, right? Processes. Again, there's a lot more to this, but that exercise just gives you the basic idea.
That was very cool. And obviously, we didn't cheat on that. So
I did not. I did not write anything down. And I also, my other question is am I going to dream about this tonight? Because that's going to be weird. But okay, we don't have to answer that.
So does this also permanently like rewire the brain? Because what I'm thinking is for a couple of years, our kids who were now not middle school, but in middle school, they made them or tested them to see if they could memorize pi to as many digits as possible. And even 10 years later, or something like 10 years later, they can still go about 20 digits. So what is it about the process that just is so memorable?
Yeah. So, for one thing, when you exercise your memory gets stronger and stronger, right? So you're going to improve that ability as you use it. I get a lot of people in my seminars that tell me, back when I was in school, college, I used to be good at remembering things, but my memory is not the same anymore. And they have trouble even remembering a few simple things that they need to do. When you think about it, it makes sense because we used to use our memory more, right? So one thing is using your memory is going to make it stronger. Another thing is with these techniques specifically, when you went through that story exercise, for instance, you were using a lot of your brain without realizing it. So when you use these types of approaches, especially when combined with spaced repetition, review spaced out over time, it is really good for long-term memory. You'll find that you will remember the information even months later. And then if you review it months later, you're going to remember it even longer term.
So there really is exercise. You exercise just like you would your body, your mind, and it will perform at a higher level.
Yes, the brain is much like the rest of your body. If you want to get bigger biceps, you got to lift those dumbbells in the gym that you might not want to do, but that's the way to get the biceps stronger. It's the same for your memory and other mental functions. You have to use them in order to keep them strong and, in fact, get them stronger and stronger over time. And hopefully people are starting to realize with this interview and the exercise that Carolyn was brave enough to go through, the process can actually be a lot of fun.
So that's why I think I've heard you do like crossword puzzles once a day, or especially as you get older, do like Sudoku or things like that, because it's keeping your brain sharp like a pencil, which was also in the list. See? Remember?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great connection there. Any type of mental exercise for sure is going to be important. Now, all of the research is supporting this. Everyone is recommending nowadays a brain exercise program in addition to a physical exercise program, right? As of today, with the current research, if you are destined to develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia down the line, unfortunately, there is no doctor, no researcher that can tell you how to prevent that from happening. But what they do believe, what the research does support, is that by engaging in rigorous brain exercise, you can build up what they are calling a cognitive reserve. So that's the terminology you'll find in the research, cognitive reserve. It basically means building up some extra brain muscle, and this can help to make you more resistant to some forms of dementia if you do, unfortunately, get there later in life. One of the best ways to build up cognitive reserve is by learning foreign languages. And you'll definitely have an advantage learning languages if you've developed your memory skills. In fact, that's something that I cover in my online programs. I teach you Korean and how to apply the techniques to any foreign language.
Yeah. So I've got the list, and there's a monkey jumping around in my head, but that's a story for a different day. But I wanted to know too, I was reading up on who you are, and I was reading about the USA, that you are the USA Memory Champ, and that there is a memory championship held every year. I think I'm going to get this wrong, 22nd, 28th champion in the USA. What is that? That's just like the coolest championship. Like, how does that go?
Yeah, so the United States Memory Championship is an annual competition. So once a year, it's been held in different locations. It used to be held in New York City. Nowadays, it's held at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And what it is one day of just really hardcore memory tasks. We memorize, for instance, decks of cards. I used to be able to memorize a deck of cards in less than 90 seconds. Nowadays, there are guys that can do it even in under 1 minute. We memorize hundreds of computer-generated random digits, poetry, names and faces in just a matter of minutes perfectly. It's just the right techniques and a little bit of training and practice. And it will just involve really using those three main principles that I talked about in the beginning and other techniques that are similar to the story method. Names is one of the competitions, and I actually open presentations with naming hundreds of people in audiences at conferences, corporate events, after just meeting everyone once. It's all just the right approach. So I'll give some tips for names now. Step number one, whenever you are introduced to someone, just make it a point to immediately repeat their name and shake their hand if you can. So if you meet someone named John, just nice to meet you, John, or pleased to meet you, John. It sounds obvious, I know, but a lot of times when someone is introducing themselves to us, our mind is all over the place. We're thinking about all sorts of other things. We don't pay any attention to the name. That first step forces you to pay attention for at least 1 second. Start that now. It will become a habit. Step number two, early on, just ask the person a question using their name. So, John, how do you know Chester? Or, John, how long have you been a member of NACS? One simple question like that. I want to clarify. I don't mean use the name over and over again to where it might seem a little bit weird. Just use it once early on. Step number three, take a few seconds or less to think of a connection between the name and anything at all that you already know. John might make you think of John Lennon, so it could be a famous person like that. But it could be something as simple as you have a friend or family member that has that same name. You think of maybe your Uncle John. And last step, step four, just make it a point to say goodbye when the person is leaving your store, for instance. Goodbye, John. Hope to see you again in the store sometime, John. Just use the name one last time. If you can combine that with the visuals that I was talking about earlier, you are going to be better than you ever have been, for sure, at remembering names.
And that's just such a winning it adds to your person. When somebody remembers you by your name, it implies that they care. And caring can be taking the time to remember their name via some techniques or whatever, but it truly works. And also, legal disclaimer, you didn't actually encourage people to shake hands. It can be a fist bump or something like that in this current climate. Yeah. But just joking aside. But so many other applications beyond meeting somebody in a networking reception. What are some of the other ways that you tell people that this can enhance your business?
Yeah, so, memory is a fundamental part to learning. I was, looking at your previous episodes. I actually listened to your episode on e-commerce, one of the recent ones. And, that's an example. Now people are going to have to learn so many new things, right? As the world is changing. And if you improve your memory skills, you're going to retain more of that information. You're going to be a more effective learner, right? I also talk about this in terms of leadership, right? When you can demonstrate that you're on top of the latest trends, right? You can demonstrate that you have a lot of knowledge. People see you more of an expert, as more of an expert in your particular field. So they're just a lot of different things. This would apply to exam, training material, certification exams, things like that as well.
And I'm sure this isn't the first time you've been asked this question. We have a lot of meetings that we have in Las Vegas. I would imagine that you're really not allowed to go in casinos at Las Vegas.
So I'm not sure. I've heard that I'm on a watch list there because I've been on a lot of different TV shows, memorizing decks of cards, for instance. If people check me out, my website, they'll see me, one of my TV clips is CNN memorizing a half deck of cards during the commercial break. I just don't mess with it because I don't want to get taken in the back or anything, and roughed up as we've seen on some of these documentaries about card counters. Card counting is actually different. It's more of a mathematical process, but people, are worried maybe that I might be really good at it. So I might be on a watch list. I just really don't want to mess with it. But yeah, playing cards you can master, of course, with these techniques as well.
Chester, my last question is, how'd you get involved with this? Were you a kid running around and your parents were like, why do you remember everything?
Yeah, so how I got into the field was a bit random. Growing up, I often got the comment from people. People would say, wow, you have a really good memory. And so one night I was flipping channels. I caught a segment on ABC's 2020, that evening news program. They had a segment on the United States Memory Championship. So that's what sparked my interest. I quickly found out that although I started out above average in terms of memory, I was nowhere near the level of the best people in the United States. So I started doing a lot of research into ways to enhance memory. Eventually, I was able to win. And since winning the U.S. Memory Championship, I've gone on and I've spent 12 plus years training other people around the world in the small subset of techniques that I feel can immediately help them in their business, in their personal life. And again, if they have kids or grandkids in school, I have a bunch of, now I've actually started a whole online memory school. People can check that out. I set up for you guys coupon code NACS, NACS. So the first 100 listeners can get started without any enrollment fee whatsoever. Hopefully people will check that out. There's so much that you can really do with this stuff.
So anyway, the website is...
My website is memoryschool.net for the online memory school training. Again, visualize a giant net so you memorize that it's a net. So memoryschool.net. And then I set up coupon code NACS for you guys.
Well, thank you very much. And you're also the first guest that we've had on that has a theme song. So as we say our goodbyes, we'll have the theme song play this out. So once again, thank you for joining us, Chester. And it was very memorable in what you can learn with enhancing your memory. It does work in business. It does work in your personal life. Hopefully you can remember some more positive things in life too, because there are some challenges that we are facing now. So think of the good things and use those memories. And thank you, Chester, for joining us today.
And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.